And we're back. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Today's Weather Tonight. Here, as usual, I am your comedian / meteorologist. That's your meteorologist, Cloud Hudson. And I will be bringing you all of tonight's top weather stories. That's weather that includes everything from the weather under the ground to the weather in the sky to the weather beyond the sky. Okay. I think this might be my last broadcast of 2024 because tomorrow night we'll all be out celebrating, hopefully a new year. If it comes, hopefully it'll come. But I believe this is my last broadcast for the new for 2024. So year in review. I've done this show pretty much every day. I'd say I definitely missed 3 full months because of going to treatment for 2 months, and also the month after Hurricane Helene, I didn't have power or internet, so I didn't broadcast then. So, and then there was also a few nights that I've randomly taken off throughout the thing, but I've had generally probably over 200 broadcasts, maybe close to 300, but not actually at 300, probably 270-ish broadcasts in a year, which is pretty good. It was my New Year's resolution to do a broadcast every night, and I didn't know that I would be gone for treatment or without internet because of a hurricane when I made that resolution. So I think I did pretty good considering the circumstances. Ugh, had a crick in my neck all day and I can't really get it out. I don't know why. Okay. Welcome. This is, as I said, probably the last broadcast of the year, but I will be back in the new year in a couple days. Welcome. Let's get into tonight's stories because one of our top stories tonight is that there are Aurora tonight. So let's go ahead and start talking about the news stories. First of all, this is the best live cam that I could find of the Aurora Borealis that are currently tonight. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can get this put into a little thing in the corner. I'm going to do properties. This is going to go to... Okay. And then move to top. Oh, here we go. I did it. I was able to do it. Okay. I'm going to put this little bit of the live cam of this Aurora in the corner so that we can continue to monitor them. Here's the Aurorasaurus, which is a cool storm tracker website. Current storm indications, we've gotten up to I think we got up to barely over 600 gigawatts. We got to 610 gigawatts. Yeah, at 10:45 p.m. on December 30th tonight, we reached 610 gigawatts, and we're back down to 554 gigawatts. Space Weather Live isn't reflecting that. It's showing that our hemispheric power is only at 28 or 29, but I think that's something different. Magnetometers are showing that we have a strong southward component, so the incoming solar storm should couple well with our environment. KP index is not as high as you would think it should be, but we are expecting some decent storms tonight. And while we're over here, I guess we'll just go ahead and talk about, oh geez, this stupid ad has been like taking up too much space on the thing. I don't know how to get that off of there. So this story from spaceweatherlive.com says 2 Earth-directed coronal mass ejections. Long story short, the general consensus is that now that the coronal mass ejection visible on the Soho LASCO yesterday around 7 UTC is indeed a front side event and will impact the Earth likely late tomorrow, December 31st in the evening. It is likely associated with the M2 solar flare, which peaked around 4:30 UTC from sunspot region 3939. The NOAA Space Weather Prediction Center has a strong G3 geomagnetic storm warning in effect, which seems a bit high for the CME, but we have our fingers crossed and hope for a surprise. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the models. The NOAA model up here indicates a decent, God, I wish I could get this freaking ad out of, can I get this ad to go away? Okay. I don't know why it kept popping up and taking up most of the screen, but look at what the Space Weather Prediction Center has modeled for these Earth-directed storms. Boom. That is some really high stuff right there. We're just barely missing the like 60 plus plasma density values, but we are solidly in the 30 plus plasma density values. We're looking at maybe looking at possibly up to 40 in the 40s density. This is going to be the interaction region between those two rapidly fired M-class solar flares that happened right around the day of the X-class flare. So this is all headed for us right on the New Year's Day. It's expected to hit us right around midnight. It's actually right around tomorrow night when the ball drops. When we go into 2025 is when we're expecting this storm to hit us. So that's really exciting for me and other nerds that think there's significance to the arbitrary holidays that we celebrate, where we've randomly picked this day as the day to remember that we've traveled around the sun once more. That's really cool. Let's look at our solar activity for the day. Let's see. On the 30th, we've seen from 46 to 56, we've seen 11 coronal mass ejections. And let's take a look at our solar flares. Oh, we had some M-class solar flares today. Let's see. We had, so technically, we had a second X flare today. Oh my goodness. We had another X-class flare today, y'all. So if you felt sick or sleepy overnight, that could be because we just had 2 back-to-back X flares. This was an X 1.59 that was launched around 4:10, 4:30 UTC today. I guess that is what we are expecting to hit us over the next 2 days. We're looking at, so, I mean, I'd say this is some pretty high, some significantly elevated solar flaring, X-ray flux for an entire day from yesterday to today. So the night before last night, we saw that X 1.1 right around 7 UTC. And then last night we saw the X 1.59. I don't know if I even realized that X, I mean, I was broadcasting, I think I was broadcasting around that time last night. I think this is around the time I was broadcasting last night. So that's kind of crazy. That both of these X flares took place while I was live on stream. That's an interesting synchronicity. We also had an M3, M2 M1s, 4 M1s, an M5, and an M3 peeking out there. Solar flares out the ass. So we are finishing this year off with a bang. There's probably going to be a significant increase in solar activity over the next couple days. We're expecting a lot to happen, honestly. I'm expecting a lot to happen as a result of these back-to-back X-class flares. I'm expecting a lot out of you guys too, honestly. Anybody who's looped into my timeline, we're all hanging out at the time when, okay, why won't this Discover card ad go the fuck away? We're all hanging out at the time on the timeline where things are ramping up right now. Will this ad go away? Can I get this ad? Can I X this out at all? No, it's just going to keep. I don't want that. Okay. I want to see the coronagraph. We're all hanging out on the timeline where this solar activity is increasing right now, which in my opinion means that we're all going to have some significant growth periods in our lives in this next year. Let's try. Why isn't this loading? Okay, there we go. Let's go back to solar activity. 3936, the one that gave us our first X-class flare, is on its way out. And let's see where... Oh, the proton storm is, I'd say I call it a storm because it's been elevated protons for a few, like almost a week now. It's not at storm level technically, but technically. The most recent X was from, which area was this one from? Why doesn't it list this? 3932. Okay. Sunspot region 3932 is been giving us some decent, an M9, M4, some decent flares here. Let's look at that on sunspot regions. Okay, that one is on the same longitude as 3936. So those are both on their way out. 3938 and 3941 both look healthy, and 3943 rotating into Earth view is also got a bit of complexity to it. As we look at our far side, it looks pretty quiet on the far side. Unfortunately for fans of space weather, it doesn't look like we're getting any replacements for these big heavy hitters that are rotating out of Earth view soon. But we've got a moderately strong interplanetary magnetic field right now. It takes 70 minutes for the solar wind to propagate from the sun to the Earth at the moment. This was all south when I first started broadcasting, and now it's very close to south and north. I hope we can keep our auroral activity going. Speaking of that, let's talk about, let's see. A G3 is storm watch is in effect for the 31st of December with a G1 watch for the 1st of January. We will not know the true potential of geomagnetic disturbance levels of response until the CMEs arrive 1 million miles from Earth, when they will be about 30 to 60 minutes from reaching our planets, and their structure and intensity can be measured by our solar wind observatories, NOAA Discover and NASA ACE spacecraft. Also, neither CME is expected to be a direct hit, which also makes the forecast of intensity more difficult. These are examples of what the Northern Lights would look like if they get here. Washington, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, Illinois, Michigan, New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine are all of the states that might be able to see this. This is forecast to be a little bit lower in intensity than the solar storm that we experienced in May, the Mother's Day weekend solar storm. That was the one that happened around my birthday. Another fact that makes me feel like I'm on the right timeline. Whenever there's a solar storm around significant events in my life, I just feel like I'm on the right path. Speaking of storm warnings, our terrestrial atmospheric weather offers flood warnings in effect as storms descend over the Northeast this week. We're also looking at fire weather warnings out in the mountain states. Let me go ahead to Pivotal Weather to take a look at our national hazards. They've taken away the fire weather watches in Colorado, but there is one red flag warning here in Southern California, actually. So not too many watches going on right now other than a dense fog advisory, winter storm watch up in the northern Appalachians and lake effect snow areas of Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New York. Looking at winter weather advisories in the upper plains and wind advisories, really high wind advisories in Missouri and East Tennessee. Let's see. A tsunami caused severe damage over in El Niño, Piura, Peru on December 27th. I kept thinking I'd talked about this story and realizing I hadn't. There was this giant wave. It wasn't a rogue wave. They're now classifying it as not just rough surf, but a tsunami. It caused such severe damage in Peru. God, look at this. Boats out there in the harbor just crashing into one another, catching the surf like they're surfboards. This is not what you want to see. Washing those boats up to shore. The abnormal swell bringing in strong waves to the north coast, causing water to overflow and severely damage the coasts of Piura and Tumbes. The footage shows strong waves and sinking some fishermen's boats out at sea, pushing them near a shore. This phenomenon, caused by rising sea levels, has prompted local authorities to activate emergency plans to mitigate the impact on population and coastal infrastructure. So, in addition to that rough surf that we saw over in the that pier in California that collapsed, we're also seeing it on the southern hemisphere in Peru. Now, on the other side of the world, in Africa is splitting apart. A new ocean is forming faster than anyone predicted. The African continent is undergoing a dramatic transformation as tectonic forces carve a path toward the formation of a new ocean. The East African Rift System, a vast network of faults stretching from Mozambique to the Red Sea, is at the heart of this geological upheaval. We've been talking about this on this show for the past couple days because this is happening faster than expected as an update, because they've been showing up on the earthquake 3D radar recently over in Ethiopia in the East African Rift Zone, the Great Rift Valley, the Danakil crater. The formation of a new ocean could dramatically alter Africa's geography, of course. In 2005, an event in Ethiopia underscored the rift's volatility. Over 428 earthquakes within a short period of time caused a large fissure in the Afar region. That's where we've seen the recent earthquakes, an area characterized by its extreme temperature and arid conditions. What would typically unfold over centuries occurred in mere days, challenging long-held assumptions about geological timescales. So we are seeing a splitting of the craters of the earth in real time. This is something that can happen in real time, and we're learning that now. This is a rare opportunity for science to study the intricate details of such transformation, including the processes governing the movement of tectonic plates and formation of new geological features. The movement of the African and Somali plates at about 0.8 centimeters per year is driving the formation of a massive rift in East Africa. It's about 60 kilometers and reaches across and reaches the 10 meters in depth. It will be a new ocean basin soon. We've reduced the time frame to about 1 million years and possibly even half that due to recent research. The researcher notes that events such as an earthquake could further speed up the process, though predicting such occurrences with precision remains a challenge. So that's really cool. This calls for innovative research. We're trying to understand crustal transformation. Anybody who's got some ideas about this, go research seismology and be on the cutting edge, the forefront. Let's see. This is the solar wind power measured by the ACE satellite just upstream of Earth. And we are still sitting pretty at around 554 gigawatts. That's 1 billion watts. And over 200 gigawatts gives us a small storm visible at mid and high latitudes. Closer to 1,000 gigawatts is when we're looking at a medium storm visible at mid latitudes. So what we're hoping for in the next day to see Aurora is to get over that 1,000 gigawatts range. Okay, so we went a little out of order for this show tonight. Let's go ahead and take a look at our earthquakes now, because I've already covered, or actually, no, I haven't covered volcanoes. Let's look at our volcanoes. Then I'll go to earthquakes. Looks like a big cool down is likely to come for the eastern part of the United States there. Volcanoes today. What's our updates? Canlaon in central Philippines, an eruption at 12:30, 2045 Z. Cloud unknown reported observed volcanic ash. We had Samiru with some volcanic report. Popo, Catapetl, and central Mexico. That is explosive activity continues. We've got Santiaguito having sporadic ash emissions, Fuego continuing ash emissions, and in Japan, we're looking at an eruption from Sakurajima and Sumonoshima. We've got Canlaon erupting again. Mount Ibu erupts. Samiru and Popo continue to erupt. Fuego continues its ash emissions. Nevado del Ruiz comes in at a whopping flight level 230 volcanic ash plume, and Sabancaya has some volcanic ash reported. We've got 38 currently erupting volcanoes around the world. Now, let's go to our earthquakes. Oh, I forgot to mark this. Here we go. This one. There we go. Okay. Let's look at today's earthquakes. Looking at an increase in earthquakes from our recent activity in Hawaii. I bet these are all going to be around the Kilauea crater. Yes. So a 4.3 was actually recorded here probably near the Mount Kilauea National Park, State Park, whichever one it is. Then we also had a cluster of 2s around it. The 4.3 was at 30 kilometers depth at 4:04 a.m. And then over here, just north of off the northern coast of the Big Island, we had a 2.5 at 39 kilometers depth. Up in the Aleutian Island chain, we had a 3.6 and a 1.9, also accompanied by a smattering of 2s in the main part of Alaska. Let's see what this big one is. It's our biggest quake here. 3.5. We had a 3.5 here near Anchorage. Well, really in the mountains northwest of Anchorage. This says 59 kilometers southwest of Squintna, Alaska. So this is, yeah, the Squintna River comes out of these mountains. Not much. It's in the Alaska range. Let's keep going with our earthquake roundup. We've got, let's see. Oh, why am I frozen? Hello? Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Can you hear me? I think you can hear me. Let me see if you can see me. I don't think you guys can see me. There we go. Now you can see me. Okay. For a second, my computer or something froze and you couldn't see me along with the video. Okay. We've got, okay, 3.5 up here in Alaska, 3.6 out in the Aleutian Island chain, a 2.6 here in the little armpit of Alaska and Canada. Let's bring our small magnitude quakes back in, but we can see that there was a 3 in Nevada, a 3 in California, and some 2s around there. And then when we bring in our small level quakes, we see the number of quakes jump way, way up. There was a 2.0 earthquake at 10 kilometers depth in the New Madrid seismic zone, just near on the Tennessee side of the Mississippi River. We had a couple earthquakes, a 2.1, a 2.4, and a 3.0 in the little area, but mostly on the western side of Puerto Rico. We had a 4.5 up here just off the coast of Peru, or the southern coast at 10 kilometers depth. We also had in Chile a 4.5, a 4.6, and a 4.3, all at moderately shallow depths. Over on the other side of the Pacific, we had a 4.8 in the Mariana Island chain at 68 kilometers depth. We had a 4.4 in the middle of the Philippines at 123 kilometers depth. There was a 4.2 here In the the Vanuatu Islands, that was at 239 kilometers deep. 4.6 was at 576 or 572 kilometers depth. That was in the Fiji Islands, in Levuka, Fiji, or just off the coast. And then a 4.8 at 500 kilometers depth was just like south of the Fiji Islands. None on the Antarctic, none in the Indian Ocean, but we did have a 4.1 up here in the Himalayas. That's a 4.1 at 10 kilometers depth in Dipayal, Nepal. That is at about 1,000 meters high. How many meters high is that? No, that's more than 1,000. Let's see. It was on a mountain that is on the part of a mountain that is about 2,490 meters high, near Chorky and Chapali. This is in like west of Kaprad National Park, pretty close to the border with India. Okay. It's in that Himalaya area. Let's go to East Africa, where we are seeing a continuance of that huge seismic swarm in the East African Rift Valley. I mean, this is looking like the next Puerto Rico, where we're just going to constantly see quakes. You can kind of see, let me put on a different Earth. This one? No, this one. This is where earthquakes typically strike. The yellow. This Earth map that I have on is where earthquakes are typically hitting. Then B is the nighttime view. C is, I believe, C is my elevation one. If I'm not mistaken, let me look a few places. Yes, C is my elevation topographical map kind of projection. So we see both in the depression there and on the higher elevation areas, we've got, let's see, 4.8 at 10 kilometers depth, a 4.5 at 10, a 4.5 at 10, a 4.6 at 10, a 4.7 at 10, 4.6 at 10, and a 4.7 at 10. I'm beginning to think that 10 kilometers depth is where we triangulate depth when a earthquake shows up on other sensors, because there's not sensors there. That's probably what that is. I mean, but that is a lot of earthquakes in that area, and I'd be really curious to see what's going on in the East African Rift Valley, because this is multiple days in a row of multiple fours in that area, and it's been pretty quiet there all year. That's about it for today. I think I'm going to keep it on elevation. Oh, and the sun and moon line are the white and cyan lines that I have projected on the Earth there. Okay. Now, let's see. Let's go to, okay. I'm back. Let's go to check out our weather, atmospheric terrestrial weather. Oh. Atmosphere. I don't want that one. I want that one. Okay. Let's take a look at this in motion because it looks like a good spinny boy. Yeah, there's some decent rotation on that thing. So you can see that we're beginning to get an occluded front where the cold front comes in and like undercuts the warm front, and they go whoop, creating kind of like an intensely stable, but also and moving towards a stable intensity, but like not currently stable atmosphere. This is it. There's going to be a lot of lifting before we get to the stability, but eventually the thermal gradient will be in the right orientation. But first we're going to get that lift of the cold front lifting up the warm front. And then we've got a stationary front out here. That's the one that's kind of spinning in place. Then on the back side of that, there is that big cold front coming in. That is what was alluded to by the 8 to 14 day forecast that we saw a sneak peek of on another part of the internet today. This low up here is the one that swept through the southeast yesterday that had just, or the previous 2 days that caused all those tornadoes. You can still see a decent rotation on it even after the front has occluded. It's in its degenerative stage. It's in its cyclolysis or cyclolysis stage. That's the death of a cyclone, where cyclogenesis is the birth of a cyclone. And you can still see the arm that hasn't occluded yet. The warm front is still bringing lots of precipitation ashore into Canada. But now that it's up here, it is still liquid water. They are not getting snow. It's liquid water. But on the backside, when we behind the trough, we see all that cold air coming in. And from the cold front here, we see this turning to snow. I'd be surprised if Sioux Falls and Sioux City didn't show mixed precipitation soon, but it does seem to be just going straight from liquid water to frozen water. From rain to snow, not going into those in-between stages. Let's see. This is the result of what swept in from the west yesterday. So if we can watch these two. I wish that they would animate or create a product that animates the movement of the frontal analysis. I'd have to make that myself, I think. But that would be a cool thing to have. It's loading. Okay, so you see once it moved up here, a swooping in and a swapping out. If the cyclone starts to die when it's already at Missouri, then we're not expecting too much from it, but it is going to help pull down the cold front. So it's not that this one is expected to be super productive. It's that this rotation here this low pressure area is going to cause air to want. I say all these things in quotation marks because it's like technically anthropomorphizing the air. It doesn't actually have wants. It obeys the laws of physics, whatever. It makes the air from the high pressure region, this cold area, the cold high pressure air from up here in Minnesota, Montana, want to move to the area of low pressure. Air moves from areas of high pressure to low pressure, and from areas of high temperature to low temperature, or from warm to cold. But cold moves towards warm when there is enough. It's all in the same equation of state, which forcing rides out. And in this case, we are going to be dominated by that pressure advection, not the thermal advection doesn't really, it usually pressure leads thermal changes. Like the movement of this parcel of air that is this pressure is what changes the temperature, not the movement of a warm body to a cold place changing the pressure. Pressure gradient force is one of the dominant geostrophic winds, or dominant components of geostrophic wind. Basically, moving from high to low is what usually ends up driving the movement of large bodies of air. Let's see. Well, this is a decent thing to look at. I'm going to go back to a shorter time frame and look at our satellite. Let's see our low, mid, and upper level water vapor. Okay, so you can see that there is definitely, even at the lower level, air moving in from the west, giving us some of this. There's definitely westerlies coming in. There's also some stretching going on along this stationary front, and that's where you can see the that's what a stationary front does, is it does that like stretchy pulley taffy thing. You can slightly see it here between Kansas City and this part of south central Kentucky, where air continues to do the same thing, even though what the air produces moves on. Where that air is stays in the same little spot. Where that machine is doing that thing stays in the same location. That's the station, the stationary front part. This cold front right here, you can kind of see spilling in the form of dry air because it can hold less moisture. You can see the cold front in this dying cyclone really clearly, showing that big arcing curve. And you can see the warm front advecting a lot of moisture and warmth up into eastern coastal Canada. Now let's look at mid-level water vapor. And that's where you can see that this is the reason why we don't have quite as widespread as storms, even though we saw lots of moving moisture at the low levels. It's only where we have saturated mid-levels that we can sustain a storm. So the reason it's only raining in like Iowa to Chicago type area is because this is the only place that the mid-levels are sustaining that cloud growth. And you see an even less healthy band of moisture associated with the dying cyclone here. You don't see it growing. You only see mid-level moisture levels dropping here, which also indicates that we're in the death of the cyclone phase. And you see the rotation at the mid-levels kind of weakening as well. Let's see. Now the upper level water vapor. Nope. Upper level. That is where all of this ends up. So there should be divergence aloft for a growing cyclone. That's what we want to see for something getting bigger. Everything from the mid-level should be moving up and out. Everything at the low level should be moving in and up. Here it's definitely diverging along. It's not even clearly diverging. It's that the north and east quadrants of this cloud formation are moving faster than the backside. So that's technically stretching, expanding, diverging, like moving away from one another. And then over here, I mean, we're still seeing the remnants of this cyclone, but not doing any great stretching, mostly doing some squishing. So it's wrapping up its little career here. We also have a warm front aloft here. So that means expansion aloft in this little area. That is where we would want if we wanted this to look more like a conventional mid-latitude cyclone, that's where we would want something to be advecting moisture and heat into, but it's not forming very well. Okay, so this is where our cold air is going to be coming in. Let's look at temperature forecast. Do we have temp forecasts? So as we sweep through the next day, look at all those cold temperatures coming in through the second. That is, it doesn't let me see what the legend is, but I believe this means that we are getting into the freezing temperatures. I think pink is into the 20s or 30. The 30s is the cyan blue and the 20s is the white. I believe the red is down to the 20s. Let's go to, let's see what it, yeah, you see that low sweep in. Let's see. What's my forecast for forecast temperatures? Day 2 min temps. Okay, yeah. Looking like the 30s, 20s and 30s sweeping into my area. But some areas of the upper plains are getting into the teens, the single digits. Might get into negative temperatures. Yeah, by day 3, we'd be looking at negative temperatures in like North Dakota. Let me make this bigger. Yeah, looking at negative temps by day 3. Day 4 min, we're looking at negatives in the 20 or minimum temperatures in the negative 20s. But tomorrow, this is our highs and our lows. Lows are looking pretty expanded in the freezing ranges. Maybe only in the 40s for some of the South. You might be able to actually look cute on New Year's Eve in a cute little outfit. Possibly be able to stay warm and dry. Okay, let's look at our observations now that we're over here. So in 24 hours, our precipitation totals got up to parts of the Southeast got 2 to 4 inches of rain in the peak spots, but most widespread people saw 1 to 3 inches. Everybody saw at least trace precipitation all along the entire eastern seaboard. I love saying that, eastern seaboard. Now, the over 72 hours, we definitely got close to 4 inches in a lot of places, at least 2 inches in many areas. This was enough to cause some what they called nuisance flooding up here in the hills of western North Carolina, but no significant damage done. There was a lot more rain down in the deep south and the Gulf Coast and Atlantic coastal South Carolina and Georgia. And then over in Oregon and Washington, they saw, torrents of rain, but there weren't any tornadoes, so they didn't make much headlines. But over here in southwestern Oregon, they had like 8 inches of rain in 3 days, 8 to 10 inches of rain in 3 days. That's a huge amount. So that is what we've seen over 3 days. Over a week, many areas have gotten at least 8 to 10, some to 15 inches in the past week. And everywhere's gotten, close to 2 inches that has gotten rain. It's really the central upper plains and the desert southwest that hasn't gotten any rain. That is where we're at there. Now, we did do a bit of a check-in with our solar weather. Let me go ahead and get to our Schumann resonances because those have been popping off as well. We had a little bit of a brief lull at the turnover from the 30th to the 31st. These last, about 16 hours ago, we saw a little lull. But today, now that I'm awake, we have seen a huge increase in those Schumann resonance powers again. We've seen a lot of low frequency power bursts, but also just all across the board, really heightened Schumann resonances. Our frequencies are still relatively high for such a powerful Schumann storm. We saw an increase in the mode 3 and 4 the other day, while mode 2 stayed quiet. And let's look at our amplitudes to see that. Yeah, we saw a big old spike in modes 1, 3, and 4 at this little point in time. Over the 30th, we continued to see some increased amplitudes of power transmission, really overall increasing again. So really powerful Schumann resonances. Let's look at the magnetosphere. This is what this has been looking like over the past day or so. It's really interesting, this streak right here of going backwards, because usually that's where the eddy, that's where the magnetotail usually forms. Oh, and there we go. There was a big, over here at this, let's see, at this shows for, just after, this is just after the X flare launched. So about an hour after, so that X flare getting here, not the flare itself, but we've got an arrival of coronal mass ejection, not material, but an increase in solar wind speed coming right here at the about an hour after that X-class flare happened time. Ooh, there's a big increase in the magnetotail speed. And we also got that echo flow, the little eddy, that backwash in the magnetotail. That was not present at first. We just didn't have a fast enough laminar stream coming. But once the speed of the solar wind increases overall, then we start to see the development of this magnetotail. You can see that come in right there. Which is really cool. That's where our wind washes back on us. Also, this is a new moon. So the moon is not in the magnetotail. The moon is out in front of the Earth between us and the sun. Let's look at the density. Be interested to see how the densities played out for that. There we go. The wave of density increasing. You can see the ripple effect of that onslaught of the solar storming that we saw come in today. Let's see what pressures looked like. We got decently charged up radiation belts around the Earth to start with. There they go. Watch this again. Boom, there's the pressure coming in. Woof. Getting a big old lens over the eyeball there. And I mean, I'm looking at this sun-facing lobe, watching it get decharged almost. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it definitely decharges there. Depressurized frontal lobe. And you can see that hole in this one as well. So let's go back to our solar weather, see if anything happened since we last looked at it. Oh, no, I want to do this. Oh, we're back in the south direction, and it is moderately strong interplanetary magnetic field. So, fun stuff. Let's look back at, okay, here is where we see that today was the new moon. Today was maybe a hard day for some people. Maybe a hard day for people who have been liking Pluto and Capricorn in the past. This is the first new moon without Pluto and Capricorn. We now have Pluto in Aquarius, and we had a new moon at exactly at 10 degrees exactly, I think, 9-10 degrees of Capricorn, right on the transition between the first decan and the second. That was not opposed by Mars retrograde technically, but was thinking about how Mars retrograde is about to occur in Cancer. This new moon was sextile to Saturn in Pisces, and Saturn is the traditional ruler of Capricorn. So I'm sure that Saturn linked its Saturnaity into the new moon. So we're having an extra Saturn-y new moon today. It's also a moon day. Monday is moon day. this also occurred in a 5 aspect, a quintile aspect to Jupiter retrograde in Gemini. So more of a breaking free out of the mold kind of energy between there. So new moons in Capricorn, we're going inward within, we're reevaluating our relationship to the mountain sea goat sign, cardinal earth sign. It's making tangible decisions and committing to them, leadership in the material world. We also have a strong influence of Mercury in Sagittarius, trine Chiron in Aries. So some sort of expression of your pursuit of higher knowledge, travel, intellect, spirituality, ascension kind of things is in a flowing aspect to Chiron, the wounded healer inside of Aries, the sign of like ego, self-identity, not as much in the leonine aspect, but more in the what's your idea of individuation versus the whole, or what do you want versus what you want in relationship to other people. That's also opposed by Lilith in Libra. So Lilith in Libra and Chiron in Aries are now co-present with the nodes. We've got North Node at 1 degrees Aries and South Node at 1 degree of Libra. Yeah, we're marching ever closer towards that Saturn-Neptune conjunction. We are still in a Saturn-Jupiter square. That's going to keep happening until Jupiter goes out of retrograde and moves forward into Cancer next year. Let's look at tomorrow night at 3 hours ahead back. In the last hour of 2024, we're going to be on a Mars day and a Mercury hour. There's going to be a 23 degrees of Capricorn moon trine to a 23 degrees of Taurus Uranus. So I think that we're going to have a big emphasis will be on this last decan, this last transit through Taurus of Uranus in this next year, I think, which is going to be about upheaval of systems, monetary systems, food systems, ways of relating to resources, values, and power. We're also seeing that Mercury trine Chiron go exact. So anything related to our external seeking of higher knowledge that reflects upon our biggest wound and biggest opportunity for growth is going to come to light. Probably a great way to do shadow work, especially considering the involvement of Lilith with these aspects. Lilith, Mercury, and Chiron being in this isosceles triangle is probably a great opportunity for doing some inward reflection, shadow work, healing, setting goals with the intention of turning your greatest wound into your greatest strength. We also have Pluto exactly opposite Mars in Leo. Pluto in Aquarius opposite Mars in Leo. That's going to set quite the tone for the new year. Also, Venus is at 27 degrees of Aquarius. That is making almost no aspects other than a rough square to Uranus and Taurus. Just giving that kind of weird aesthetics vibe to 2025. We also, of course, have the influence of Saturn in Pisces, still making a sextile to the sun, but no longer the moon, and a square to Mercury and a square to Jupiter roughly. Still in a very weak square to Mercury, but that Mercury-Jupiter-Saturn square that's been prevalent over the last week is going to be an influence as well. So, let's not neglect that the Moon, Neptune, and Uranus are in a grand sextile with each other, which means that this Moon trine Uranus is going to be flavored by the illusion and delusion and transcendent void of knowing, like knowing nothing and nothing knowingness, influence of late degree Pisces Neptune. Okay, and we are getting ready to plug into our very masculine new year, where we already have a dominance of masculine placements, and we are already looking at, well, I guess technically of planets. We've got 5 in feminine signs and 5 in masculine signs. So we are looking at, but then when you include the nodes, Lilith and Chiron, we're looking at an overwhelmingly masculine chart, which is correct for the next year. We're going to have a lot of masculine transits with Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune being in feminine signs, but eventually transitioning into male signs. And the only thing that at one point, the only thing that's going to keep us balanced is Jupiter in Cancer. So this is going to be quite the year. Let's look at the ephemeris actually of, let's do, I want to do full year. Can I do a full annual ephemeris? Full moons, moon, yin and yang, planets colored. Okay. So these are our lunations for next year. We're looking at April 8th. To have an eclipse in Aries. We're also looking at October 2nd to have an eclipse in Libra. There's going to be supermoons in Pisces and Libra at September 18th and March 25th. So those are going to be, I'm sorry, these are the lunar eclipses. These are the solar eclipses. The solar eclipses are going to be April 8th and October 2nd. The lunar eclipses are going to be September 18th and March 25th. Our first lunation of the year is going to be January 11th. We will see our, is that right? I feel like we're supposed to have a full moon before we're supposed to have another new moon, right? Because we would have December 30th. Today is our new moon. Then where's our next? Oh, January 1st. We start. Oh, no, we don't start. What am I talking about? January 11th is the next new moon. January 25th is the next full moon. Let's see. Oh, that's 2024. That would be why. I'm like, that's not right. We need to have our first full moon in 2 weeks from now. First full moon is 2 weeks from now. Just kidding. I was like, I felt like April 8th sounded familiar. I'm dumb. Okay, I'm not dumb. I just clicked on the wrong year. January 13th is going to be our first lunation of the new year. Correct. Okay. January 13th, we have a full moon, and then January 29th is our next new moon. Our eclipses are going to be taking place, transitioning from Pisces and Virgo to Aries and Libra. The first one is going to be a lunar eclipse just barely on the Virgo side of things on March 14th. Then we will have a solar eclipse on March 29th in Aries. Then later in the year, we'll have a lunar eclipse in Pisces on September 7th and a solar eclipse on the cusp of Virgo to Libra on September 21st, which is the 21st night of September. It's also the vernal equinox. So I love when eclipses happen on equinoxes. I just think that's really cool. Let's see. So those are our moon ephemeris. Let's see. That's just full moons. Annual sun. Can I see all? How come I can't see every month? I mean, planetary movement April through January. Why can't I see the entire year? Let's do, that's January through April. We're going to have Uranus and Taurus just chilling there. These dots that are very spread out are the moon. Pluto will retrograde eventually, but move back in the forward direction. Here's our Mars retrograde, moving from Leo to completing its retrograde here in the middle of, I think this is, oh, it doesn't let me click on the date. And then going direct in Cancer, we'll have Gemini, Jupiter finish up its retrograde action, move direct. I'm not looking for, I misspoke. Mars is in Cancer, being our only feminine planet for a while. Venus will go from, it'll be just barely at the end of Aquarius at the beginning here, go into Pisces and then Aries, and then retrograde back into Pisces. We will also have Mercury start out in Sagittarius and then go into retrograde at the same time that just after Venus goes into the shadow of its retrograde period. So Venus and Mercury will be in retrograde in April, or as we move into April. We've got that Neptune ingress into Aries coming up. That is actually Neptune ingress comes later. Let's look at May through June, or May through, let's look at April. The Saturn ingress into Aries coincides with the Neptune ingress into Aries, I think. Yeah, right there in May. It's going to be around May 5th, I think. It's going to be in Taurus season. This is also when Uranus is finally going to make its final direct motion towards Gemini. We're going to be kicking things off with a bang is all I can say about that. Finally, Venus will be direct then. Yeah. We've got quite the year coming up is all I can say. It's going to be exciting. Mercury will finally be back in Gemini, giving some dignity to Gemini, bringing lots of fun into the things. right before Jupiter leaves Gemini and goes into Cancer in the next month. That happens around the 26th of June. And Saturn and Neptune join ever closer as they move through Aries. Saturn will eventually overtake Neptune. Let's look at the Saturn before it retrogrades back into Pisces. And Neptune will also eventually retrograde back into Pisces by the end of the year. But they do on July 4th is when it goes back retrograde. They'll eventually both make it back into Aries. But this is going to be our big sneak preview into what 2026 looks like. Okay. Let's get a vibe check. Final vibe check of the year. Okay. Now, let's start off with the liminal space deck. Oh, no, I've been liking doing this one first. Okay, this is our affirmations deck coming at you. The one that I use selenite with. That. It's a beautiful one that I got from a friend last year for Christmas. Who wants to jump out as the final vibe check of 2024? Oh, not all of you. I'm going to shuffle one more time and then cut the deck and pick. This is a glorious time for me to be on this earth. And it's got the picture of somebody in front of a ginormous sun on top of a hill. Sun's either setting or rising. This is a glorious time for me to be on this earth. It says, you are extensions of source energy here in these magnificent physical bodies. The amazing diversity of your time-space reality provides the perfect balance from which to create and attract. There has never been a better time to be upon your planet. So even if you feel like all hope is lost, that you're here in the wrong decade, that you wish you were here when things were simpler, just remember that you have the most power to create and attract the reality that you want to in times of great change and upheaval. Going with the flow includes making your changes with the flow calculated into where you go. You don't try to surf into the waves, you surf with the waves. So remember which direction the flow is going, and you can always change your direction with respect to that. It's a glorious time to be on this earth. It really, truly is. Just try to remember that. Okay, next, let's get a card from the tarot deck with my labradorite piece with it, my raw labby piece. One more shuffle. Who goes with, this is a glorious time to be on this earth? All right, we got the Two of Wands in reverse. The Two of Wands shows somebody standing on the ledge of a castle with a globe in their hand, one staff on the ground next to them and one staff in the other hand. Roses and lilies decorate the insignia on the turret there. So somebody kind of standing guard and looking out towards the world, pondering, reflecting. This is, I think, reflecting on action, reflecting on what is within your control and what's outside of your control, trying to take in the lay of the land and seeing what battles may come ahead. Not looking to the past, but looking to the future. We're looking at what we know, and both on land and sea, from the masculine and feminine aspects. What are we protecting ourselves from? What is within our control? We don't have to be quite on guard yet, but what are we trying to anticipate? I'd say with an inward Two of Wands, we're looking at a pairing internally. The internal pairing of masculine and feminine energies. What can we do to reflect upon what that means for our spiritual growth? What does it mean to embody both aspects internally? What does it mean to balance both aspects internally? And what role does that have to play in spiritual growth? What's our kind of Sagittarius type of energy there? This is also the first decan of Aries. Two of Wands is the first decan of Aries, which is where that Neptune and Saturn conjunction is about to happen. So looking internally for what are our hard and fast. Saturn's like this wall that we're standing upon, Neptune being that great out there unknown. When they come together, what are we seeing from up high on our wall, on our turret, of inside what's coming up? What do we anticipate coming up on the horizon? This is a glorious time for me to be on this earth. Let's just sit back and watch, and also actively co-create in our reality. Don't just be a passive observer, be an active observer. Okay, now for last message from the liminal space and the ocean jasper that goes with it. Ooh, jumper on this one. Memory Lane. Oh, that's cute for final card of the year. Memory Lane. It's got like a little alley on it. Memory Lane. The description for this one gives us familiar, isn't it? It's important to remember here that this is only a set and a cast of actors. It isn't actually happening, even though it has happened. If watched objectively, this could be an incredibly insightful experience and available tool. If tampered with, memory loss or inability to access this realm at all may occur. The mind will circle places that require reconciliation, much like water will swirl a drain. Trust where your thoughts take you and the medicine of remembering, but it is a fruitless and disheartening endeavor to continue fighting finished battles. Try for acceptance. Try to accept the past, not go back and perfect it. Because you can't go back. There's no going back. This is all giving me deep internal reflection, a time to have gratitude for the year, even though it's been a tumultuous and hard one. This has been a hard one year, and we made it. So be thankful. Congratulate yourselves on making it through 2024. Oh, why did my stream freeze again? Good God. I hope that y'all got my card update, but looks like I'm having issues. Hello, show on stream. I gotta stop the video again. You can still hear me, but you can't see me. This is so weird. That's so weird. I hope that wasn't locked for too long. This was the visual of our oracle card. This is the visual of our tarot card. And this is the visual of our liminal space card. Yeah. I hope that you guys have a lovely, happy New Year. Great New Year's Eve. I think by the next time you see me, I'll have dyed my hair, and yeah, I'm excited. Happy New Year. Love you guys. Bye.